Hi everyone, welcome to Tutoring Tuesday. Tonight we are going to be talking about multiplication. So we're going to keep it very simple, very basic, but I'm going to go through the continuum of where students start in third grade and where they head to fourth grade and eventually fifth grade. Hopefully tonight I give some strategies that will help you at home with your kiddos, and hopefully I can clarify some misconceptions that you may have as well. So for those of you that are just popping on, I just want to let you guys know too that if there is anything that you would like me to cover, any specific topic next week, the reason why I do this is because of you. So truly let me know what you would like for this upcoming week. So like I said, the word of the week is multiplication. So we are going to really dive in to multiplication right now. One thing I have to say is that multiplying kind of comes in two parts, right? So if your students are pretty solid in addition, multiplication should come fairly easy to them. But that doesn't negate the fact that we really need to make sure students have a conceptual understanding of what multiplication means. So multiplication truly is creating equal groups of a certain number. Okay, so we're going to really talk about like equal groups tonight and making sure that we're really modeling exactly what the problem is asking us to do. Okay, but likewise, I'm going to teach you 3 tricks. The first one for third grade is just making equal groups, keeping it simple. We're going to keep in the concrete, and we're going to dive into a little bit of modeling and representational. Then in fourth grade, we're going to really dive into a strategy called the area model. We're going to really dive into what does that mean, how does this help support our kids, and how can that then lend itself to eventually in fifth grade, we actually teach the standard algorithm. So one thing to keep in mind is that when we think of standard algorithm, we think of like, we put a number here, we put a digit here, and we just multiply and then carry and then multiply and carry, okay? I'll talk about it in a second. That's not what students should be doing until fifth grade, right? Crazy. And the reason why they don't learn it until fifth grade is because it's not developmentally appropriate. The kids will learn the procedure, the kids will learn what to do and the steps, but they're truly not understanding exactly what multiplication is until they develop that conceptual understanding in third and fourth grade. So please do yourself a favor and don't jump the gun with your kids at home. Don't just teach them the tricks because we learned it that way and you think it's easier. It truly isn't. So back to a story when I first became a teacher back in 2004. I was a fourth grade teacher and I was teaching everything. But this little student in the front row, every single time, there was a reason why he was in the front row too, but every single time he would ask me, Miss O'Leary, why does that work? Or does this work all the time? And honestly, I could not answer him. So up until then, I thought I was really, really good at math, but it wasn't until people started asking me why. Why does that work? Or why do we carry that one? Or why are we doing it this way? That I really realized I really wasn't all that strong in math because I just learned a procedure in order to dish out an answer. And truthfully, what we need for mathematicians today is we need them to not only get the accurate answer, but they have to understand the process behind it. Because if they don't, they'll never, ever, ever, ever be able to apply it later on in life. Okay? So once again, we're going to dive into multiplication starting in grade 3. So let me turn you guys around. Okay. Once again, obviously I'm not super high tech here, so I apologize that you guys aren't going to get the best video, but we are going to dive into multiplication and we're going to look at grade 3 first. The one thing that we want to keep in mind with really developing that understanding of multiplication in grade 3 is that students need to build this. It's one thing for them to understand that, 4 times 2 is 8, but it's another thing for them to truly comprehend what does it mean when you have 4 groups of 2. Now remember what I just said, 4 groups of 2, okay? So I'm going to actually build that, 4 groups of 2, okay? So I have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, and each group has 2. Making sure our students are able to articulate that is crucial. Once they are able to then build 4 groups of 2, they can then obviously count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, students will eventually start seeing this as an area, okay? So it's a 4 by 2, right? 4 groups of 2 or a 4 by 2. Now, when I think of this, I can see it as 2 groups of 4 as well. So students are going to start seeing the inverse, or I'm sorry, the commutative property where 4 times 2 is the same as 2 times 4, but do not negate the fact that 4 groups of 2 looks very different than 2 groups of 4, okay? So if I was to write 2 times 4, the model would then be this, right? 2 groups of 4. Likewise, 4 groups of 2 looks like this. And I know that sounds really silly, but we really need to make sure students clearly articulate what it means. So if I have 4 baskets with 2 apples in each, what does that actually look like? Whereas if I had 2 baskets with 4 in each, I'd still have the total number of apples. Don't get me wrong, I still have 8 here and I have 8 here. But truly, 2 baskets of 4 apples looks different than 4 baskets of 2 apples, okay? So making sure students understand that, yes, they give you the same product. They result in the same solution. They are, in fact, equal. But they look very different when we model. So in grade 3, we really just dive into single-digit multiplication. You go all the way up to 9 times 9, and you do multiply tens by a single digit as well. So let's go into a 10. Let me show you that. I'm going to put a little squiggly so you can see the difference. So if I had 20 2 times, okay, that would be 20 groups of 2. Now, truthfully, 20 groups of 2, that's a lot, right? So we think 20 groups of 2, and I'm not going to bore you to death with this, right? But if we're only expecting kids to come up or arrive at the solution, it's okay for our students to then just say, well, if I have 20, okay, and I have it 2 times, what does that look like? And a lot of the times, students will just draw a 20, a 10, and a 10, and they'll draw it 2 times, which will then result in 40. But remember, 20 groups of 2 looks a lot different than 2 groups of 20. Okay? All right, so now let's go into 4th grade. So how are we going to dive into 14 times 2? Now remember, these are facts that kids know or students know from grade 3. They know 4 times 2. They also know 10 times 2. Remember, place value, and I talked a lot about this last year, is huge. This is not a 1. So thinking back to how we were taught to stack them. And it was 4 times 2, 8, 2 times 1, 2. Now listen to what I just said, 2 times 1, 2. They will lose place value understanding of what that 2 truly means if they just learn this right off the bat. This, my friends, is a procedure that will never develop a conceptual understanding with your students or with your children at home. We need to have them build, what does this actually look like? So obviously kids can build this, they can draw this, they can build 14 groups of 2. They can also think about using place value blocks. So for those of you that know what these are, I'll kind of just do a really quick rundown. But this 14 is represented by 1 10 and 4 1s, right? So if I have 1 10 and 4 1s, I then have 14. Now, if I have 14 groups of 2, I can sit here and I can model 14 groups of 2. But eventually, the students are going to then start seeing how finding 2 groups of 14 is probably easier, right? As long as they understand what these mean interchangeably, they can then understand what it means conceptually. Okay, so let's build this. So if I have 14, 2 times, they can actually then combine the 10s. We have 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 28. Now, one really amazing strategy that they're going to see in 4th grade and then leading into 5th grade slightly is this what we call area model. I'm going to write this down for you guys so you guys know what this means. Okay. So that means when we have a multi-digit number, we can actually break it down according to place value. So if we have the number 14, we know that we have a 10, and we know that we have a 4. Likewise, when we have the number 2, I'm just going to make this, sorry, this is why I need high-tech equipment, right? No, just kidding. And we have 2. So they can still see that this is where my 14 lives, and this is where my 2 lives, okay? So then they can then see, if I was to build this, a 10, right, 2 times, they can see that that is 20. And a 4, 2 times, they can see as 8. They then combine it to give you the total of 28. Let me share with you how this area model then helps with multi-digit by multi-digit. I'm going to do color coding just so that it's easier for you guys to see. So if I was to do 14, I was going to multiply it by 12. Let me show you how good this works. Okay, so we all know, and this is from 1st grade, that a 14 is decomposed into 1 10 and 4 1s. Likewise, 12 is decomposed into 1 10 and 2 1s. So when students start building this, they can actually put 14, and they know they have 12. Okay? And they actually fill this in. So they have a 10 by 10, which is 100, a 10 by 4, which is 40, a 10 by 2, which is 20, and a 4 by 2, which is 8. Let me show you where that comes from. I don't want to draw on these lovely things, so pardon me as I attempt this. So if I was to fill in this box, to fill in my area, okay, so this box, here's my 14, here's my 12. This box is a 10 by 10, which is 100. This box is a 10 by 4, which is 40. This box down here is a 10 by 2, which is 20. And this box right here is a 4 by 2, which is 8. They then can see this area that is filled in by my 10 and 4, which is 14, by 12, which will give you a total, if my math serves me correctly after a long day, 168. So after you kind of share with kiddos or students, it's really important for them to then start seeing how this area that you've just developed, right, 14 and 12, creates a solid model. And so in school, we do have a hundreds block that fills this in. We have 10 rods that fill this in, etc. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you the representational thing that you can do at home. So you can build 14, and truthfully, you can do this with pencils. I'm sorry, pencils. Oh yeah, I guess you could do pencils. Sorry, pretzel rods, and you can do this with M&Ms to value 10 and then 10 ones. But I'm sure if you asked your student or your child's teacher to send home some base 10 blocks, they would be happy to do so to help you with homework. So remember, we're decomposing the numbers into the place values. So 10 and 4, which is 14, and a 10 and 2, which is 12. And then likewise, you fill in the area. So a 10 by 10, a 10 by 4, a 2 by 10, and a 4 by 2, which is 8. Let me show you how this works with the next number. Okay, I'm going to put a little squiggly line. Remember, this is 4th grade, guys, okay? So how would this work with a 3-digit? So we just did a 2 by 2. Sorry, we started with a 2 by 1, then we went into a 2 by 2. And now what happens when we get into the hundreds? Don't sweat, guys. It's all good. I'm going to do multicolored just so that you guys can see where the breakdown of the place values are. And this is really important for you to possibly even do with your kids at home, just so that they can see where the place values live in the number. So if I have 132, I have 130 and 2, and I have a group of 4, okay? Or I have 4 groups of them. So let's dive into that. So I'm going to once again decompose my number, just like I did over here. I decomposed my 10. Keep on putting the cap on. I decomposed my 10 and my 4 for 14. And I decomposed my 10 and my 2 for 12. So I still have 14 and I still have 12, but let's talk about how friendly those numbers are, right? If I have 10 groups of 10, kids love getting to 100. And if I have 4 groups of 10, that's simplistic math, right? And then 2 groups of 10, likewise, and 4 groups. Instead of, oh gosh, forgive me if I've even forgotten how to do this. 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2. Oh, but you got to remember that 0. For whatever reason, we put this 0 here. Gosh knows, we just put it there because my teacher told me so. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. Add them up. Goodness knows, every single time I got the right answer. But I had no idea what I was doing. So please know that by doing this with your students, by doing this with your children at home, you are truly laying the foundation for why this works. Because, look, 28 lives right here. 140 lives right here. All right, so let's look at 132 times 4. I'm going to do the color coding just so that you guys can see. So if I have 132, I'm going to decompose that into 100, 30, and 2. And I know I'm going to be multiplying it by 4. I'm going to take my marker. I'm going to fill in my area. Hence why it's called the area model. Get it? All right, so now I still have the same value. I still have 132 here and 4 here. But now my multiplication, I'm not getting boggled up when, like, what step am I doing? Am I putting a 0 here? Am I not putting a 0 here? I'm truly laying the foundation for place value. So if I have 100 4 times, that's 400. If I have 30 4 times, that's 3 times 4, but there's 10 of them, so it's 120. And 2 times 4 is 8. You then, just move this out of the way, you then add all of them together, and you get 528. Now, eventually, in 5th grade, your students, your children, will naturally do the standard algorithm. They'll know 4 times 2, but hopefully they start saying 4 times 30, and then that to carry that 1. Goodness knows why we did that, but whatever. 4 times 100 and one more 100, which is 500. But truthfully, if we think back to how we were taught, we lost every single thing when it came to place value. Every single step. We didn't identify this as 30. We didn't identify this as 100. We surely did not identify that as 100. That was just a 1 up there that we had to add to it, right? So by doing this, students are able to then articulate and say, oh, my answer, a reasonable answer, should be around between, a little more than 500. And why? Okay? So eventually when they get to 5th grade standard algorithm, they're able to do that. Okay? All right, so now let me just move my stuff over just to kind of recap. I'm going to do a 2x2 one more time just so that you guys can see. But remember, it all starts in grade 3. The foundation is laid in grade 3, where they are truly building 4 groups of 2. Let me bring that over to you. And understanding exactly what they are doing when they do that. So 4 groups of 2. Now when they get to, 4 groups of 2, or they see it as 2 groups of 4. Still gives you 8. They then multiply a multiple of 10. So anything that ends in a 0 is a multiple of 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 by 2. To eventually being able to think of a 2-digit number by a 1-digit number, to then go into a 2-digit by a 2-digit, to then go into a 3-digit by a 1-digit, or vice versa, okay? Please know that every single step in understanding place value is so vitally important for our kids to truly understand and conceptually understand what they're doing, because when it's really going to impact them is come division time. Okay, let me do one more 2x2 and one more 3x1 so that you guys can clearly see what I am doing. Let me grab some more paper. My daughter's going to probably love that I'm using all of her artwork paper, but whatever, she's just going to have to roll with it. Okay, so let's do one more. I wish this could be interactive and you guys could give me like a 2-digit number. If you're anything like my students, you'd probably give me like 99. Please don't give me 99. All right, so let's do a 2-digit. Let's start with a 2-digit by a 1-digit. Okay, so remember, we're talking about place value. So we're talking about 30 and 2 ones, and we have 5, okay? So we can decompose 32 into 30 and 2, 3 10s and 2 ones, and a 5. And we're going to, that's just our, pretty much our border, right? 30 and 2 by 1. So now we have an area to fill in. That's 30 5 times. And they should know 3 times 5 from 3rd grade to help them with 15. And they know that it's a multiple of 10, so therefore it's 15 tens. And then 2 times 5 is 10. Combine them together, 160. To then eventually go into 32 times 54. Once again, we have 3 10s, which is 30. We have 2 ones. And then our other number is 50 and 4. The students can then fill in that area. And since it's a 2x2, you should have 4 different quadrants because there are 4 digits here. All right, ready? So this number is a multiple of 10, and so is this number. So one thing to really be mindful of is with our kids, we need to make sure if they use 3 times 5, which we highly encourage them to do so, they know that it's 30 times 50. So 3 times 5 is 150. 30 times 50 is 1,500. We have 2 times 5, and this is where this gets a little dicey. If we only teach students that however many zeros, that's how many zeros you add to the end, it's going to eventually catch up to them, and this is why. 2 times 5 is 10. Well, if the rule is that it should only have that many zeros, this already does. So please don't teach that rule because eventually it will expire. So 2 times 50, so 2 50s is 100. Really understand that place value. 30 times 4, so 34 times, which is 3 times 4 is 12, but we have 3 10s times 4, which is 12 10s, and 2 times 4 is 8. We add them up. Now this is where our students might need to combine So they might combine the 100 and 120 to 220, add the 8, which is 228, and then add that to the 1,500. This is where you're probably going to be like, oh my gosh, why is this so daunting? Why do we have to do so many steps, right? But truthfully, I want you guys to understand the value that happens here. Because if we and when we jump to the standard algorithm, we truly want our kids to understand that 4 times 3 is not just 4 times 3, it's 4 times 30. That's why this answer is 128. And then we want them to also understand why that place value is there, that holder, because we're now multiplying by 50. We also want them to understand that that 1 that they just carried actually is a 100. And then 50 times 30 is 1,500 plus 100. Okay. All right. And last but not least, we have a 3-digit by 1 digit. Let's just do 7. Once again, we have a 3-digit number. So this is the value is 100, 4 10s, 4 1s. Put that in expanded form, stretch it out. 100, 4 10s or 40, and 4 1s. And we have 7. And that area that we fill in is all based on the place value. So we have 7 groups of 100 or 100 sevens, which is 700. 40 groups of 7. So 4 times 7 is 28, but we have 40 of them. So it's 4 10s times 7, which is 28 10s. And 4 times 7 again, 28. Combine them all, and you get your total. So one thing to keep in mind is that if students do have to add them, like so, just making sure that they're really articulating the place value, that all the 1s add together, all the 10s add together, and then all the 100s add together, or even if you get into the thousands, it's really important for them to see that. Okay? So that, my friends, is multiplication in a nutshell. So let me turn us back around. So that is multiplication, like I said, in a nutshell. So why is it so important that we teach place value? Why is it so important that all of our students understand truly where these numbers come from when we eventually get to 5th grade? It's because they need to understand what they're doing. If they don't understand what they're doing, they will never truly grasp why their answer is reasonable. And if they're anything like me, they might just be that very plug and chug. Tell me the procedure, I'll do it, I'll bang out the right answer. But they'll never be able to articulate exactly why, right? So I was never able to tell you why I put that 0 when I multiplied, except my teacher told me to. And it's because it's like the 2nd level and I just put a 0 there, okay? So really making sure we're taking time and just taking a step back and realizing that they're literally 9, 8, 10-year-olds, right? And so for them to really grasp a mathematical concept, we need to take a step back and we need to develop that conceptual understanding. Trust me, I know it's uncomfortable for us as parents. Trust me, I know it's uncomfortable for some of our kids because they just want the easy way out. But let me tell you, we are building better mathematicians than we ever have done in the past. So just take a moment, accept these new strategies, and I promise you, the light bulbs will start going off for you too. All right, you guys have a great night. Remember, math is great, math is beautiful, math is fun, so enjoy. And remember, comment below if you need me to cover anything next week. All right, see you later. Bye.